All right, good morning, everyone. We're here for the Commissioner Status Update, April 25th, 2023. Time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Our first item is the LATCF, which is the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Funds discussion. So we, Kootenai County, agreed to accept some $782,000. Essentially, it's kind of an ARPA stepsister. I don't know what you want to call it. Yeah, so it's related to that, and the restrictions are way, way less than ARPA. So we need to decide what we want to do with that. This is just a discussion, so we can bring it back to a business meeting. But the $782,000 I would like to put towards the building project. So that way that there's more fund balance left, and that's just my idea for it. Thoughts?
Well, it seems like we have two projects on the table that we're discussing, the jail and the Justice Center. So
There's more justice, more jail money left over.
Well, that's where I would argue that the money should be at least set aside for until, we have a good sense of the overall cost of these projects. And if it ends up being they come in way under our expectations, then we can discuss using that money in a different location. So
Okay.
I'm okay with that as a contingency for those
Makes
things.
sense to me, too.
Yeah.
All right, so I will see if Jody can bring that back. I don't even know if we need it to be official yet, do we, Brandy?
You could assign it to the master plan. It's not in fund balance yet.
Okay,
It's just sitting in the budget.
okay. So if we don't need a business item to do that, then that's the direction, is to put it in the master line item. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Good. Number 2, potential locations for the PMR on-site clinic. So I had first working group meeting last Friday, and there's 3 locations that were identified. 2 would work really, really well. If KCSO moves to Kootenai North, that would leave the basement of the admin building, and it would leave the Compton building open because of the other shifts that are happening. So the Compton building is ADA compliant. The top floor would be enough room for the clinic. It would have its own separate entrance off of Dalton, and we can move the fence back and create more parking. So there's a lot of potential there. And then, of course, downstairs at the admin building, it is also accessible and plenty of room for the PMR clinic. So any thoughts, ideas? I'm actually going to take a tour of the Compton building sometime, I guess, next month.
Yeah, I would argue that the Compton building between those two choices is better because of HIPAA and not having a building that has multiple functions in there. You get a little more privacy that way.
Yep.
Privacy is important,
Okay.
essential, I should say.
All right. So, Sylvia, when that's scheduled, would you like to go with me, and maybe Scott can, and Brandy?
Yes.
Okay. So I will, I'll get that scheduled. Okay. Anything else on potential sites for the clinic? You got to come to a microphone.
Just a quick question. So if we take an existing building and retrofit it for the clinic, will we have to do RFPs for the construction costs, or what is?
If
the
they're
amount?
under 200,000, we should just be able to get 3 bids.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, number 3, patrol staffing and overtime discussion. And is this Sheriff?
Good morning, Commissioners. Under Sheriff Brett Nelson, on behalf of the Sheriff's Office. Last week, in a review of our current staffing for our patrol as we enter the summer months and our busiest time, we found that we have a great need for additional bodies. That being said, we had to push out some 44 overtime shifts between now and June 10th just to maintain minimum staffing for the county to provide services to our constituents. I informed our liaison, Commissioner Brooks, who in turn asked me to bring it before the three of you for discussion. Currently, we have 63 slots assigned to our patrol function. Of those, we have 5 people that are out on injuries. We currently have 12 vacancies as of this morning within patrol alone, and we have 8 deputies that are in training who don't count for providing services on their own. That leaves us 38 functioning bodies to provide services within those 63 slots. As of this morning, we have 43 department-wide vacancies throughout the organization. For purposes of discussion, we are being pulled in different directions, we being the Sheriff's Office, to provide services not only through the county, but also now with municipalities within the county because of their ongoing staffing issues. For purposes of discussion, we just wanted to bring it before you at the request of the Commissioner again to make you aware that obviously this is not only going to affect our overtime budget, but our ability to adequately staff the various functions and entities as we enter our business time of the year.
I think it's real important that the policymakers hear from the boots on the ground, so to speak, because oftentimes there's a disconnect there. This really means, and we don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. Do you guys have an answer? I mean, a proposed answer?
Well, as a collaborative effort, we're working towards presenting a presentation to the council, or excuse me, to the board in the near future. But in the meantime, we're revamping anything and everything we possibly can, looking at our hiring practices. As I spoke to one of the commissioners before the meeting, last week we had testing for ongoing vacancies. We were supposed to have 18 people. There were 2 sign up, only 11 signed up. And of that, only 3 made it through our physical agility written to get to a interview at the end of the day. So as much as we're revamping our internal processes and bettering them for the best business model, we in turn are still coming up short in regards to the amount of qualified candidates that we are getting.
Are you talking about patrol?
Yes, and jail.
And detention?
And detention, that's correct. We combine our testing together based on the need for both sides of the organization, because sometimes we can have someone that qualifies for both sides, and depending on how they pan out through the testing process, could fill one or both of those vacancies.
What is the census today? What is the population in the jail?
We're averaging 530 on average.
530?
530.
Has the state come and got any more people?
You know, they'll take 10, 20, 30 at a time. That's a problem we're going to be dealing with. For
Have they done that lately?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because I know
We've spoken to it, and since we've had a conversation with the state, IDOC, they've increased the numbers that they're taking, but again, it's ebb and flow of how many. It's not consistently a 25 or something, as the sheriff alluded to. It may be 10, it may be 22 next week. It's just an unfortunate situation that they don't have the housing as they told us.
How many people do you figure in your jail are eligible to go on the bus ride south?
Generally about 80.
And right now, as of this morning, we have approximately 90 floor sleepers in the jail.
And we are not entirely in control of our own budget. Currently, we have an inmate over at the Kootenai County Medical Center that has a court order. However, there's no bed for this inmate, so we've been providing 24/7 security times 2 because of her assaultive behavior for 8 days. For 8 days now, 24/7. 2 deputies, 24/7. We have expressed our dissatisfaction of the conditions that this individual has to exist in. literally, she is in an emergency room area with no bed. And they will not accept her as of right now, so we've asked for an emergency order an emergency hearing, which we're getting on Thursday. We asked for it Friday. A lot of challenges that having a facility that has 125 more inmates than it did last year. A lot of financial challenges that we're facing, and that is certainly one of them. 24/7 care times 2, it's going to increase the budget quite a bit. And I trust me, I've tried, many things, having meetings with the judiciary. I've had meetings with police chiefs. Darren, our attorney, said that his advice is that, Bob, you can ask them to cite people out, but they're not required to cite people out. So I said, well, Darren, who runs the jail then? Does the sheriff run the jail? Because I thought the sheriff ran the jail. And why can't I put policies that tell police departments on nonviolent misdemeanors you have to be cited?
You're talking about nonviolent felons.
Or no, I'm talking about
Misdemeanors, no, felons.
I'm talking about misdemeanors. But our legal advice is saying that no, we can't do that. We can ask them, but we can't require
What
it.
percentage do you think are the nonviolent?
Well, it's getting smaller and smaller, that's for sure. But I do believe that there's probably about 30 to 40 that we could release
Safely.
safely.
So that brings you back down to 400
Yeah.
between state
State
and nonviolent. Yep.
How many do you have now sleeping on the floor?
I believe as of this morning, we have just over 80. 80.
Sleeping on the floor?
Correct.
With a mattress?
Well, with a mattress, but also in a enclosed, what they call canoe. So it's not bad. It's actually, some people prefer it.
And as to further clarify, as of this morning, we had just over 80% of our inmates were felons.
Yep.
And as the sheriff spoke to, we have 80 inmates currently sentenced to the IDOC, a total of 110 state prisoners within our facility right now.
But certainly the demands of law enforcement in Kootenai County are growing. They will continue to grow. Our mental health crises will continue to grow as it pertains to a criminal nexus. So these things will continue to grow. I'm alarmed at the special handling aspect of many of our inmates, require much more special handling than they did 5 years ago. But that's representative of the community that.
I just wanted your office to come today and update us so we don't in 2 weeks or 3 weeks go, oh, we didn't know that.
Very good, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So, could you say in good conscience that we could take on more growth here?
No, our infrastructure from a law enforcement standpoint is stressed beyond current capacity
Yeah.
in all regards.
You know, one of the things that I see here, and we need to fix this, is we need to start developing, kind of like a dashboard of the important metrics so we understand, not only where do we want to be, but where are we now? And use that information to decide, just how far behind where we want to be. This situation of playing reactive to every crisis that comes along is not good in the long term. I assume at some point we continue to increase the potential liability if an accident occurs. We're understaffed. We work people a lot of overtime. That increases the likelihood of mistakes. When you have so many people in the jail, the likelihood of somebody getting hurt goes up because of the density of the inmate population. And I would assume the ratio changes of the number of deputies per X number of inmates. So that changes the safety factor as well. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There is more, the inmates have more of an organizational structure within the jail itself. We try to break that up. We try to break up who those shot callers are and put them in a segregated area. As you know, we did publish a press release about 3 weeks ago on an erroneous release that we had. And luckily, we were able to bring that individual back into custody within 24 hours.
Yeah.
But that was an erroneous release that when you have the numbers that we have with the same amount of personnel or less, we're going to start to have some of those cracks in our system.
Wasn't that a judiciary thing where the judge released them?
No, it was a clerical error on our behalf. There was 2 judges, one from out of county that had sentenced the inmate, and our personnel didn't properly interpret the paperwork correctly based on what was done here within our county, and he was erroneously released. If I may add also, having worked the jail in the most near past, I had the opportunity last week to walk the floors, if you will, within the jail, and had an opportunity to speak to some of the inmates, asking specifically what they felt, how things were. They thought they were being treated very well by our personnel, which was nice to hear. I asked them what their general concern was, and they said, we're stacked on top of each other. There's the tension lies.
Yep.
As you said, the density, the floor sleepers, as they refer to them, is a problem because there is no free space for them to do their workouts, things of that nature. Everything's encroached upon. So it was interesting to hear their take on how things are run within the jail, both the positives and the negatives. The positives, it was nice again to hear that our personnel are treating them in a professional manner, but more importantly, the overpopulation is affecting their peace of mind, if you will, as an individual inmate.
What are the numbers that are out-of-county residents?
Give me just a minute. Let's see if I have that. Not sure that's a matrix we have in our daily.
I would like to encourage people on the record that the substance abuse law in Washington has expired. So illegal substances are legal in the state of Washington. They are illegal in the state of Idaho. You will go to jail in the state of Idaho if you possess a controlled substance. So please take note of that. They're illegal in Washington, they are illegal here.
PSA from our sheriff.
Forgive me, Commissioner, I do not have the total of who is in county or out of county residents. Something I can look into and I'll get back to you.
Okay. Typically, it hovers around 30%, so I'm just curious
Correct.
at this
I
point.
will have an answer to you.
Okay.
Can you read those numbers again, of the total number of slots you have in patrol and the total of bodies you have right now?
Yes, Commissioner, we're assigned or authorized for 63 slots for patrol. And currently, taking out our injured, our current vacancies, and those that are in training, we have 38 actual bodies working the field.
Okay, so you're roughly about 40% vacancy at this point.
That is correct. And just to let you know, as I received that information last week, I immediately asked those sworn personnel that are assigned to backgrounds, civil, et cetera, to start assisting with maintaining our minimum staffing, if at all possible. They have a function in the big picture of trying to keep our organization going, thus conducting backgrounds, handling the civil service. But if at all possible, I'm asking them to pick up some of those shifts too, to maintain our I'll be quite frank with you, our safety for our personnel and that of the constituents we're serving, to ensure that we, one, go home every night, our people, and two, we are aiding those who are asking in dire times for our assistance.
How many in backgrounds?
I am uncertain of that right now. find that out also.
That's fine.
On that last note that Brett was talking about, not only are some of those non-essential positions going to work some of the overtime slots, but we're asking non-essential positions to also work and adjust their shift to work a shift on regular pay. So instead of doing your driver's licensing, you could be a watch commander over in patrol. Instead of being, training, you can still be a watch commander over in patrol. So it's not just overtime shifts that we're asking personnel to cover. Guess what? You're gonna, 40 hours a week, guess what? Well, 8 hours or 10 hours, you're gonna be working a shift as your regular time.
Are you able to attract people to apply in bigger numbers now?
It's, law enforcement has been a challenge the last couple of years. We will be presenting a plan forward that we hope and believe that other agencies in the Pacific Northwest have been successful with. And we will be bringing a plan forward to do that. See, in staffing, I can take a patrol deputy and put him in the jail and function. But I can't take a deputy in the jail who's fully trained and put him or her in a radio car, in a police car, to have them go answer calls for service and what have you. I can't do that. But can I generally take a patrol deputy and say, hey, we want you to provide security for the medical staff while they're dealing with these special handling inmates? I can do that. But it doesn't work vice versa.
Commissioner, to answer your question, we typically right now we have 10 in patrol backgrounds. I'm sorry, in backgrounds for patrol and 5 for detention. And we have monthly ongoing testing.
Yeah.
To continue, as you're speaking to, attracting whatever we can possibly to come towards our organization.
Just one last question. If there's one thing that the board could do to help you, what would that be?
We believe with our presentation, awaiting the clerk's office to give us what those financial projections are, we believe to maintain our employee retention and to attract, we believe we need to be closer to a major agency in the Pacific Northwest. So that's what we'll be bringing forward, is that recommendation.
So those are largely compensation.
Yes. We're not asking to be the highest paid law enforcement agency in the Pacific Northwest. We just need to be close
And keep up.
and keep up. Yes, that's true.
There's an article in the I saw the other day that California is now hiring undocumented citizens for law enforcement because they cannot find people to fill these jobs. That's the way I read the article.
That is correct. Speaking to some friends of mine down there, and they're pushing back, obviously, for certain reasons. You speak to that too. I know of some certain Southern California agencies that have a $50,000 signing bonus because it's become so dire, because their current staffing is so overloaded by maintaining the minimum staffing that they're trying to attract from external, other local law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, we want to have the ability here to aggressively and appropriately enforce the laws of the state of Idaho. We need to be prepared to do that, so we don't become a Spokane East situation, because we will likely have a lot more visitors during this season, starting Memorial Day to Labor Day. So we want to ensure that we have the staffing to be able to do that.
Does that mean that if people come over here and visit here, because we're not able to enforce the law, that it actually creates an environment where more people, where they want to come over here more often because they feel like they can get away with things?
No, I think that large part is that they think that, well, if there's no enforcement of drug laws in Washington, we're only right over here in Coeur d'Alene or Kootenai County that probably have the same laws. We actually have intel, credible intel, that there are some criminal elements that say, hey, I don't want to go to Idaho. I don't want to do that transaction in Idaho. I don't want to do it in Coeur d'Alene. I don't want to do it in Post Falls, because if we get caught over there, it's prison time. If we get caught over here, then they give us a Snicker bar and a can of Pepsi and send us on our way. But we actually do have a degree of the criminal element that is part of their strategy. Hey, we're not going to do that. But I think people just come over here for the resort town during May and Labor Day. They don't realize that we have a different set of laws than they do in Washington.
And just to add to that, obviously, and we speak to it, being understaffed and overworked, we still have good work there being done by the personnel. Last night, we had a deputy that made a stop of a vehicle on Interstate 90, ended up getting over 3 ounces of methamphetamine and several firearms from a vehicle trying to traverse the county going east. Obviously, the elements here between 95 going north to the Canadian border, but also east. So with that being said, we know it's present, that being the criminal element. It's just a matter of trying to address it with the means in which we have the current staffing.
Okay. Bill, anything else?
Oh, sadly, that about covers it.
Nope, thank you.
All right, public comment? Nope. Okay, 10:27, meeting adjourned.